A quiet artist marries into a family that sees her as nothing more than a pretty, penniless decoration. They mock her talent, they isolate her, and they try to break her spirit, demanding she use non-existent connections to save their failing reputation. But they made one fatal mistake. They never asked her what her father did for a living. They never questioned why she was so quiet about her past. By the time they found out, their entire world was already in ashes. This is the story of Chloe Sullivan and the staggering price the Peterson family paid for underestimating her. The Peterson family home in Greenwich, Connecticut, wasn't just a house. It was a statement. It was a sprawling, new money, Georgian monstrosity of beige stone and towering white columns, a desperate attempt to scream old money that only whispered insecure. This was the arena for the mandatory Sunday dinner and for Chloe Sullivan. Now Chloe Peterson, it was a weekly ordeal. Chloe was a painter. Chloe was not a hobbyist, but a true soul-driven artist. She saw the world in light and shadow, in textures and hues that others missed. She had a small but growing reputation in the Soho gallery scene, a fact she was proud of, but rarely mentioned. Her art was her own, a space sacred and untouched by the suffocating influence of her new family. She had fallen in love with Ryan Peterson, the golden boy of the family, in a New York coffee shop. He seemed different. He was a mid-level analyst at a respectable finance firm, seemingly unbothered by her paint-stained jeans and her modest studio apartment. He'd claimed to love her quiet strength, her creativity, her detachment from the shallow world he came from. Their first year of marriage had been a whirlwind of genuine affection, cocooned in their own downtown apartment, far from the reach of his family. But now, 6 months after moving closer to Greenwich, to be there for the family. That cocoon was unraveling. "Chloe, darling." Margaret Peterson cooed, her voice a weapon wrapped in velvet. She was a tall, unnervingly thin woman, draped in a cashmere twin set that probably cost more than Chloe's art sales for the entire year. "I do hope you're not tracking turpentine onto my antique Persian rug. We all know how messy your little projects can get." Chloe forced a smile, tucking her feet beneath her chair. "I was in the studio this morning, Margaret, but I changed. Nothing to worry about." "Good, good." Margaret turned her attention to her son. "Ryan, your father and I are so looking forward to the Willow Creek Children's Fund Gala. It's my biggest event of the year. We've secured a state senator and, well, let's just say a very prominent real estate developer." Arthur Peterson, a man whose personality seemed to have been blanched out by his wife's, nodded vigorously from the head of the table. "Top-tier Maggie, as always." Arthur ran Peterson Homes, a regional construction company that built the exact kind of beige mansions they were currently sitting in. He considered himself a titan of industry. "Brenda, of course, will be helping me," Margaret continued, gesturing to her daughter. Brenda Peterson, the 26, was a carbon copy of her mother, just with a smartphone permanently attached to her hand and a popular vapid influencer account. "I'm so stressed about my dress, Mum," Brenda whined, tapping at her phone. "The boutique only has the Valentino in rose, not blush. It's a complete disaster." "We will sort it out, darling," Margaret soothed. She then fixed her gaze on Chloe, a performative, condescending smile playing on her lips. "Chloe, you'll be coming, of course, as Ryan's wife. We've managed to get you a ticket. They are very expensive." The implication hung in the air, thick and toxic. "You are lucky to be included." "I'm looking forward to it," Chloe said, her voice even. "Wonderful." Margaret clapped her hands. Now, Ryan, about your father's business. We have a small, tiny legal issue we're dealing with. Some disgruntled client claiming our materials weren't up to code. Utterly frivolous, of course. Arthur shifted. Just a shakedown, Maggie. Nothing to worry about. But Chloe, the quiet observer, saw the tremor in his hand as he reached for his wine glass. She saw the way Ryan's smile became fixed, his eyes avoiding hers. She saw the first hairline crack in the foundation of Peterson Homes. The rest of the dinner was a blur of passive aggression. Brenda complained about the slow service of the hired help. Margaret dissected the outfit of another woman on her charity board. Arthur boasted about a housing development that hadn't yet broken ground. And Ryan said nothing. He just sat there, the perfect, dutiful son, nodding and smiling, casting occasional nervous glances at Chloe, as if to say, just bear with it. Just for a little longer. As they drove home, the silence in their Audi was heavier than the stone columns of his parents' house. Your mother was in fine form tonight, Chloe finally said, her voice quiet. Ryan sighed, loosening his tie. That's just how she is, Chloe. She's stressed about the gala. And this lawsuit, it's a nuisance. She said it was frivolous. It is. Of course it is. Dad builds the best homes in Connecticut. He reached over and patted her knee, a gesture that was meant to be reassuring, but felt dismissive. Don't worry about it. Just, for the gala, maybe we could, I don't know, buy you a really stunning dress. Something to, fit in. Chloe turned to look out the window, watching the dark, manicured lawns of Greenwich fly by. Fit in, she repeated. It wasn't a question. It was a realization. I just want them to see what I see, Ryan said, his voice pleading. But Chloe knew what they saw. They saw a girl with no name, no money, and no connections, a worthless hobbyist who had somehow tricked their golden boy. And the worst part, the horrible sinking feeling in her stomach, was that her husband, the man she loved, was beginning to see her that way too. The gilded cage was shrinking, and she was starting to suffocate. The Willow Creek Children's Fund Gala was Margaret Peterson's personal Super Bowl. It was held at the local country club, a bastion of old-world exclusivity that Margaret had fought for years to infiltrate. The theme chosen by her was A Night of Shining Stars. Chloe had tried. She truly had. She'd bought a simple, elegant, midnight blue gown. It was understated, but the silk was high quality, and it fit her perfectly. She felt good in it. She even did her hair in a soft chignon, revealing the delicate line of her neck. When Ryan saw her, his eyes widened. Wow, Chloe, you look incredible. The brief surge of confidence lasted until the exact moment they stepped onto the club's gold carpet and were greeted by Margaret, who was swathed in a feathered, champagne-colored monstrosity. Margaret's eyes swept over Chloe, a fractional, almost invisible sneer. Chloe, you came, and you're wearing blue. It's a beautiful color, Mom, Ryan said, stepping in. Yes, well, very safe, Margaret said, turning away to greet the arriving state senator. Come, Ryan, you must say hello. Chloe was left standing alone, an ornament whose purpose had been served. She felt a familiar sting, but pushed it down. She wasn't here for Margaret. She was here to support Ryan and a children's charity. But Margaret had a plan, and it involved more than just a backhanded compliment. Part of the gala was a silent auction. Margaret had graciously allowed Chloe to contribute. "A small piece, darling," she'd said. "Something your people can afford." Chloe had instead poured her heart into a piece. It was a 24 by 24 canvas, a stunning abstract piece titled Greenwich Dusk. It was a chaotic, beautiful swirl of deep indigos, purples and golds, capturing the exact fleeting moment the sun died behind the dark hills. It was, in her professional opinion, some of her best work. She'd had it framed beautifully, a simple, elegant black floater frame. She found the auction tables, and her heart stopped. There, nestled between a gift basket of artisanal jams and a signed golf glove from the local pro, was her painting. But that wasn't the worst part. The small typed description card read, "A dark mess, donated by Chloe Peterson." A hobbyist's painting of something. Perhaps a storm starting bid. 50. Chloe felt the blood drain from her face. A dark mess. Hobbyist, $50. A framed print at a home goods store would cost more. She touched the card, her fingers trembling. This wasn't an accident. This wasn't a typo. This was a message, cruel and deliberate. "Find something you like, sis." Brenda's saccharine voice cut through her shock. Brenda was glittering in her rose Valentino, a glass of champagne in hand. You wrote this," Chloe whispered, unable to look away from the insulting card. "Wrote what?" Brenda feigned innocence, peering at the card. "Oh, that God, isn't it hilarious? Mom and I were trying to figure out what it was. We figured $50 was generous, honestly. I mean, who would hang that in their house?" Tears pricked at Chloe's eyes, hot and angry. "I spent a month on that painting, Brenda." "A month?" Brenda laughed, a high, sharp sound. "Oh, honey, that's just sad. Don't worry. Maybe one of the kitchen staff will buy it as a joke." Chloe turned and walked away. She didn't run. Her movements were stiff, robotic. She pushed through the glittering crowd, ignoring the superficial smiles and the clinking glasses. She found Ryan, who was deep in conversation with his father and another man. "Ryan," she said, her voice tight. He turned, annoyed at the interruption. "Chloe, not now. This is Mr. Henderson from Crestview Financial. He's the one who—" "Ryan, look." She thrust the small, insulting card into his hand. He read it. His face paled, then flushed with, was it anger or embarrassment? "What is this?" he muttered. "Your sister, your mother. They did this. They're humiliating me." Ryan looked from the card to his father, who was watching with a frown. He looked at Mr. Henderson, the banker. He looked back at Chloe, and his expression was one she would never forget. It wasn't defensive. It wasn't angry on her behalf. It was pitying. "Chloe, come on," he hissed, pulling her aside. It's a joke, a stupid, mean joke, okay, but you're making a scene." "A joke, Ryan. They called my work a dark mess. They priced it at $50. So what? It's just a painting," he snapped, his voice low and urgent. "This is important. My dad is trying to secure a new line of credit from Henderson. This lawsuit is bigger than they said. We need this, and you're over here crying about a hobby." The word hit her like a physical blow. Hobby. The same word Margaret used. "It's not a hobby," she said, her voice dangerously quiet. "Whatever, Chloe, it's not a job. It doesn't pay the bills. Now please, just go, fix your makeup. Go sit down. Don't ruin this for my family." "Don't ruin this for my family?" "Not our family. His family." Chloe looked at the man she thought she knew, this stranger in a tuxedo who was prioritizing a line of credit over her dignity. She looked at the insulting card still clutched in her hand. "Okay," she said. The word was flat, devoid of all emotion. "Okay. Good. Good." Ryan gave her shoulder a squeeze and immediately turned back to the banker, a charming smile plastered on his face. Chloe turned. She walked past the auction table, past the artisanal jams, and past her masterpiece. She walked out of the ballroom, through the gilded lobby, and into the cold, damp Connecticut night. She didn't have her coat. She didn't have her purse. But she had her phone. She walked, her heels sinking into the soft grass until she was out of sight of the valet. She sat on a cold stone bench, the moon obscured by clouds, and she made a call. Not to a friend, not to an Uber. She scrolled through her contacts past all the P entries to a name she rarely ever called, a name that was connected to a different world, a world of cold, hard power she had tried to escape. The phone rang once. Twice, a crisp professional voice answered a voice with a faint British accent that she'd known all her life. "Graves. Graves," Chloe said, her voice trembling, a single tear tracing a path down her cheek. "It's me. I need to speak to my father." There was a moment of absolute silence on the other end of the line. Mr. Graves, or as Chloe had always known him, Graves, was her father's chief of staff, his right hand, his fixer. He was a man who operated with the precision of a surgeon and the emotional warmth of a block of ice. "Ms. Sullivan," he said, his voice softening by a single, almost imperceptible degree. "Are you in danger?" "No," Chloe whispered. Not physical danger. I'm at the Greenwich Country Club. I need to talk to him. Is he available?" "He is in a board meeting in Singapore, but for you he is always available. Hold one moment." Chloe listened to the faint, digitized click of a secure, multi-continental patch-through. She pulled her knees to her chest, shivering on the stone bench. The muffled sounds of the gala, the music, the laughter seemed to be coming from a different planet. Then a new voice, deep, clear, and carrying an authority that could quiet boardrooms and command armies of lawyers. "Chloe, what's wrong?" "Dad!" She sobbed, and the dam broke. The composure she had maintained for months, the polite smiles, the forced tolerance, it all shattered. "Dad, I made a mistake. I'm so stupid. They hate me. He doesn't love me. He called it a hobby." Nathaniel Sullivan listened. He was a man who built empires, the CEO and founder of Ethelred Global, a logistics and technology conglomerate so vast its tentacles reached into shipping data, mining, private security, and banking. He was a man who hadn't raised his daughter to be useful to a small-time construction heir. He had raised her to be his heir until she'd run away from it all to paint. A move he had, to his own surprise, respected. He listened to her tell the story. The Sunday dinners, the frivolous lawsuit, the charity gala, the insulting card, and finally the ultimate betrayal, Ryan's words. "Don't ruin this for my family." When she was finished, there was a long pause. Chloe worried she had bored him or that he was angry, but the voice that came back was not angry. It was cold. It was the voice he used when an executive had lost him $1 billion. This man, this banker, Mr. Henderson from Crestview Financial. He is there now. "Yes, Dad." Ryan said they needed a new line of credit. "I see." Another pause. "Graves, are you on the line?" "Yes, sir." Graves's voice reappeared. "Get me Robert Harrison at Crestview. I don't care what time it is. and get our internal audit team to look at Peterson Homes. I want to know everything, their suppliers, their debts, their contracts, and the exact nature of this lawsuit. And Graves, sir, get me a car to the Greenwich Country Club, now, and find out where my daughter's painting is. I want it. Of course, sir. The car will be there in 15 minutes. Chloe. Her father's voice was gentle again. The car is a black Mercedes Maybach. The driver knows your name. It will take you to your apartment. Lock the door. Do not answer any calls from Ryan or his family. I will be in New York in 36 hours. We will handle this. Dad, what are you? I am handling it, he said. And the line went dead. Chloe sat stunned, her tears drying in the cold air. She had just set something in motion. She wasn't sure what, but the sheer, effortless power in her father's voice was both terrifying and, in that moment, a profound relief. She saw the headlights before the car, even turned into the drive. The Maybach was silent, pulling up to the curb. A driver in a dark suit got out. Miss Sullivan, please, it's cold. She got in. The car was a fortress of leather and silence. As they pulled away, her phone buzzed. It was Ryan. She ignored it. It buzzed again. Ryan. Then a text. Where are you? People are noticing. You're embarrassing me. She turned the phone. Meanwhile, back at the gala, Ryan was sweating. Chloe had been gone for 20 minutes. Mr. Henderson, the banker, was looking at his watch. Your wife? She seemed upset, Henderson asked, sipping his water. Oh, just a small misunderstanding. You know how artists are. So emotional. Ryan tried to laugh it off. Just then Henderson's phone buzzed. He glanced at it, frowned, and then his eyes went wide. He looked at the caller ID, his face draining of color. Excuse me, he said, his voice suddenly hoarse. I must take this. He walked to a secluded corner, his back to the room. Arthur and Ryan watched him. He looks like he's seen a ghost, Arthur muttered, gnawing on a sausage roll. Henderson's side of the conversation was frantic and mostly one-sided. Yes, sir. No, sir. I had no idea, sir. Of course. I'm at the Willow Creek Gala. Yes, Mr. Sullivan. I'm looking at him right now. No, of course not. Absolutely. My apologies, sir. It will be rectified. Henderson hung up. He looked shaken. He walked back to Arthur and Ryan, his demeanor completely changed. The friendly banker was gone. Mr. Peterson, Henderson said, his voice stiff. Regarding your application for an extended line of credit, Crestview has decided to decline. Furthermore, we will be calling in your existing loan. The full balance is due in 30 days. Our legal team will be in touch on Monday. Arthur's glass dropped from his hand, shattering on the floor. What? You can't. We've been with Crestview for 20 years. 30 days, Ryan yelped. That's impossible. We'll be ruined. Henderson just looked at Ryan, a strange mix of terror and disgust on his face. Rethink your life, son, he muttered. He then looked around the room, spotted Margaret, and walked over to her. Margaret, a word. Robert'll. So glad you. I am resigning from the board of this fund, effective immediately. And I am withdrawing Crestview's sponsorship. But why? Henderson leaned in. Do you have any idea who Chloe Sullivan is? Who you mean, Ryan's wife? Margaret said, confused. Her name, you fool, Henderson hissed. Her maiden name, Sullivan. as in Nathaniel Sullivan, as in Ethelred Global. Your son married Nathaniel Sullivan's daughter, and you insulted her." Margaret's blood ran cold. Ethelred Global. The name was whispered in places like this. A company that owned, well, everything. That's not possible," she stammered. She's nobody. She's the heir to a $50 billion empire," Henderson said, his voice trembling with rage. "And you let your bratty daughter write a dark mess on her painting. I just got off the phone with Nathaniel Sullivan himself. He's displeased. You people are done. You're radioactive." Henderson turned and fled the gala, leaving Margaret standing frozen, the color gone from her face. At the same time, two men in dark, impeccably tailored suits entered the auction room. They walked to Chloe's painting. One of them placed a small laminated card on the table, "Sold." The other handed a bewildered auction volunteer a black credit card. How much should I run it for?" the volunteer asked. The man who Chloe would have recognized as Graves didn't even look at the painting. "The bidding starts at $50, I believe," he said, his voice placid. "Let's make the final bid. $5 million for the Willow Creek Children's Fund. Mr. Sullivan sends his compliments." The entire room went silent. The news spread through the gala like a shock wave passing from table to table. $5 million for that painting from Nathaniel Sullivan. Ryan and Arthur, reeling from the news from the bank, heard the gasp from the crowd. They saw Margaret White as a sheet stumble toward them. "Arthur, Ryan," she whispered, her voice cracking. "We have a problem." A very, very big problem." Ryan's phone buzzed. It was a text from Chloe's number, but it wasn't from Chloe. "Mr. Peterson, this is Graves from Mr. Sullivan's office. Please inform your family that all contact with Ms. Sullivan is to cease immediately. Our divorce attorneys will be in touch on Monday to discuss an equitable dissolution of the marriage. Any attempt to contest this will be ill-advised. Good evening." Ryan read the text. He read it again. And finally the full catastrophic weight of what they had done crashed down upon him. He hadn't just insulted his wife. He had insulted the daughter of a Megacorp. And that Megacorp was now turning its full, undivided and terrifying attention directly on them. Chloe slept for 12 hours in her old pre-Ryan apartment, a high-security Soho loft her father had bought her years ago, which she'd kept just in case. When she awoke, the city was bustling below, but her world was still. For the first time in months, she didn't feel the low-grade hum of anxiety that had become her constant companion. She felt empty. But it was a clean, quiet kind of empty. A blank canvas. She spent the day in a daze, wrapped in a blanket, drinking tea. She didn't check the news. She didn't turn on her phone. She had no idea that 30,000 feet over the Pacific, her father was methodically and with chilling precision dismantling the Peterson family. Nathaniel Sullivan didn't operate with bombs. He used scalpels. He didn't believe in messy, emotional revenge. He believed in consequences. The first call to the banker, Robert Henderson, had been the warning shot. It was a simple display of power. "You will not be giving this family my money," he had told Henderson, "and you will tell them why." The $5 million bid for the painting was the second. It wasn't just a donation. It was a price tag. It was Nathaniel Sullivan, publicly declaring the worth of the very thing the Petersons had called worthless. It was a message to the entire Greenwich social scene. You mocked her, but I value her at $5 million. Pick a side, but that was just the opening act. While his jet refueled in Anchorage, Nathaniel and his team got to work. The report from his internal audit team on Peterson Homes was on his tablet. It was not good for Arthur Peterson. "Graves, what am I looking at?" Nathaniel said, his voice flat. "Sir Peterson Homes is a house of cards. The lawsuit Mrs. Peterson mentioned, it's not one disgruntled client. It's 8. A class action suit is being prepared. They've been cutting corners for years. Substandard Chinese drywall, faulty wiring foundation, concrete that wasn't properly cured. The man hasn't just been building McMansions, he's been building liabilities." "Suppliers," Nathaniel said, swiping through the report. "He's leveraged to the hilt. His main supplier for lumber and finishing materials is a company called Apex Building Supplies." "Do we own them?" Nathaniel asked. "No, sir, but we own the logistics company that handles 100% of their North American shipping. And, as of last quarter, Ethelred Capital holds the note on their business loan." Nathaniel smiled. It was not a kind smile. "Call the CEO of Apex. Inform him that Ethelred Logistics is restructuring our shipping contracts, and Ethelred Capital is concerned about his exposure to a high-risk client like Peterson Homes. Suggest, strongly, that he sever ties." "Yes, sir. And the bank, Crestview, was the first cut. Now the rest. I see he has loans with 3 other regional banks. I want Ethelred to buy that debt. All of it. By market close on Monday. I want to be the only one Arthur Peterson owes money to." "It will be done, sir." The team worked through the night. By the time Nathaniel's jet touched down at Teterboro Airport, the pieces were in place. On Monday morning, Arthur Peterson was in a full-blown panic. The 30-day call on his Crestview loan was a death sentence. He'd spent all of Sunday calling other banks trying to secure a new loan to cover it. Every single one had turned him down flat. "Too risky," they said. "Poor credit outlook." He arrived at his office determined to find a way out, only to be greeted by his frantic operations manager. "Arthur, you need to see this Apex just terminated our contract. Cancelled all outstanding deliveries." "What they can't. We have a contract. They're invoking Clause 7B, non-payment and client financial instability. They say our credit is no good. Arthur, we have 3 houses in framing that need lumber today. We're dead in the water." As Arthur was screaming at his manager, his phone rang. It was another bank. "Mr. Peterson, we're calling to inform you that your business loan has been sold. We'll no longer be servicing it." "Sold to who?" "A private holding company, sir. Ethelred Capital Management." Arthur had never heard of it. But the name, Ethelred, it tickled something in the back of his mind. Something from the gala. Then the final blow. An investigative reporter from the Wall Street Journal called. "Mr. Peterson, I'm doing a story on construction standards in high-net-worth communities. I've received a rather extensive file regarding 8 families suing you for using toxic substandard drywall. The file includes internal memos, a cost-saving initiative that seem to confirm this was a deliberate choice. Would you care to comment?" Arthur dropped the phone. Internal memos. How his entire business, his self-made empire, was evaporating in a matter of hours. The suppliers were gone. The credit was gone. And now the press was at the door, holding the smoking gun. He stumbled out of his office, his face ashen. He was a ruined man. But Nathaniel Sullivan wasn't done. He hadn't just been attacked on the business front. His daughter had been attacked on the personal and social front. and that meant he had to deal with Margaret and Brenda. While Arthur Peterson's professional life was being systematically exsanguinated, Margaret Peterson was engaged in her own desperate form of damage control. The $5 million donation had been the talk of the state. It had, in one stroke, made the Willow Creek Fund the most successful small-market charity in the country, and made Margaret a pariah. She had been politely asked to resign from the board. "It's the conflict of interest, Margaret," her co-chair, a woman named Bitsy, had told her over the phone. "We simply can't have the mother-in-law of the primary donor on the board. It looks improper." "Improper? I built this fund," Margaret had shrieked. "Yes, well, and now Mr. Sullivan's donation will build a new wing. His foundation has taken an interest in our operations. They've sent a transition team." Margaret was out. In her own world, at her own event, she had been usurped. But it was about to get so much worse. Nathaniel Sullivan's team didn't just look at Peterson Homes. They looked at the whole family. And Margaret, in her arrogance, had left a trail. Graves had presented the file to Nathaniel. "The Willow Creek Children's Fund, sir. It appears Mrs. Peterson has been indiscreet with the accounting." "Stealing?" Nathaniel asked. "More creative billing," Graves said. "She's been billing the fund for, well, everything. Her dresses for the gala, her hairdresser, the catering for her private, non-charity-related parties. She's been using the donation account as her personal slush fund for years. It's not a lot, in our terms. Perhaps $80,000 a year. But to the IRS, it's wire fraud." "Leak it," Nathaniel said. "Anonymously. Not to the Journal. Give it to a local hungry blogger, someone who wants to make a name for themselves, and send the file to the other now former board members. Let them be the ones to file the police report." The chosen blogger was a local Greenwich gossip columnist who ran a site called Greenwich Gavel. The story dropped on Tuesday. Local socialite Margaret Peterson accused of skimming from children's charity. The story included scanned receipts, invoices from designer boutiques, bills from country club bars, all paid for by the Children's Fund. It was meticulous. It was undeniable. The same friends who had whispered about the $5 million donation were now openly calling for her head. Bitsy, the co-chair, led the charge to the police. By noon on Tuesday, Margaret Peterson, Queen of Greenwich Society, was being asked to come downtown to answer a few questions. Her social life wasn't just over. It was spectacularly incinerated. That left Brenda. Brenda Peterson was in the grand scheme of things small time. An influencer with 80,000 followers, most of them bought. She made her money by promoting diet teas, cheap fast fashion, and local spray tan salons. "This one seems, beneath you, sir," Graves had noted. "She called my daughter's art sad," Nathaniel said, not looking up from his work. "She's not beneath me. Expose her." Brenda's vice was simple. She was a fraud. Her entire online life was a meticulously crafted lie. The photos of her on a yacht in Mykonos were taken at the local marina, on someone else's boat. The vegan, gluten-free meals she promoted were immediately followed by trips to fast food drive-thrus, which she paid for with a credit card, in her father's name. But her real sin, the one that would break her, was her charity work. She had recently partnered with a small, obscure animal shelter. She'd run a fundraiser on her Instagram page, asking her followers to donate. Graves' team found the money trail, or rather the lack of one. "She raised $15,000, sir," Graves reported. The shelter received a single check for $500. The rest appears to have been spent at the Valentino boutique and a weekend trip to Miami. Tisk, tisk, Nathaniel said. That's not just fraud. That's tacky. Leak it, all of it, to the same blogger. And make sure the animal shelter's legal team gets a copy. And the IRS. And send a list of her sponsors to a watchdog account. Let them know who they're in business with. The Greenwich Gavel had its second blockbuster story in as many days. From charity to Valentino influencer Brenda Peterson's animal shelter scam. The fallout was instantaneous and digital. Her follower count, which she checked every minute, began to plummet. The comments section, once filled with heart emojis, was now a torrent of snake emojis and pure, unadulterated vitriol. Thief, I donated $100 to you. I want my money back, giving back the dress, or... Her sponsors dropped her in a wave. The Diet Tea Company sent a cease and desist. The spray tan salon put her picture up in the window with "Banned" written on it. By Wednesday morning, the Peterson family was in total ruin. Arthur Business foreclosed, under investigation by the WSJ and the State Attorney General. Personally bankrupt. Margaret arrested, out on bail, facing charges of fraud and embezzlement, kicked out of every social club in the state. Brenda publicly shamed, under investigation for fraud, lost her career and her credibility, and was now the most hated person in the local internet sphere. The three of them sat in the kitchen of their beige McMansion, which now had a "For Sale by Bank" sign hammered into the front lawn. The custom-hired help was gone. The electricity was scheduled to be turned off on Friday. They sat in a stunned, hateful silence. And in that silence, Ryan Peterson, the golden boy, the man who had started it all, finally truly understood what he had done. His family's name. The name he had been so desperate to protect was now synonymous with failure, fraud, and humiliation. He had sacrificed his wife for this. He grabbed his car keys. He had one last, desperate, pathetic card to play. He had to find Chloe. He had to beg. Ryan drove like a man possessed, his mind racing. He went to their old apartment, the one they'd shared near Greenwich, but it was empty, a legal notice taped to the door. He didn't know the address of her Soho loft. He'd only been there once, and she'd been cagey about it. "It's just my father's old investment property," she'd said. He was desperate. He started calling her phone, but it went straight to a new, unfamiliar voicemail. "The number you have dialed is not in service." She had changed it. He drove back to the city to her old art studio, the one he'd always dismissed. It was a small, rented space in a run-down building. He pounded on the door. "Chloe! Chloe, are you in there? Please, we need to talk." The door opened, but it wasn't Chloe. It was a gruff-looking man. "She's gone, buddy. Moved out 3 days ago. Took everything." Gone where?" Ryan's voice was cracking. "How the hell should I know? A professional moving crew came. The kind with guys in uniforms. They wrapped up every painting like it was the Mona Lisa. Never seen anything like it." Ryan slumped against the wall. Gone. She was truly gone. She had vanished, protected by a wall of money and power he couldn't even comprehend. He spent the next 2 days in a blur. He lost his job. His firm, catching wind of the Peterson name and its new toxic association, had downsized his position. He was now unemployed, unmoored, and his entire family's ruin was his fault. He had one last idea. The Soho Gallery. The one that had shown her work. He'd gone to her opening night, bored and scrolling on his phone in the corner. He remembered the name Galerie Helene. He showed up, unkmo and unshaven and frantic. The gallery was sleek white and silent. A chic woman at the front desk looked at him with disdain. "Can I help you?" I'm looking for Chloe. Chloe Sullivan. Or Peterson. She shows her work here." The woman's eyes narrowed. "I'm sorry, sir, we don't give out our artists' personal information." "Please, I'm her husband, Ryan Peterson." The name Peterson had the opposite effect he'd intended. The woman's face hardened. "Oh, you're Mr. Peterson. I'm afraid I have to ask you to leave." "Now?" "No. Please, you don't understand. I need to talk to her. I love her." "Security," the woman called. But before security could arrive, a new voice cut through the gallery. "That will not be necessary, Helene. I'll handle this." Chloe emerged from a back office. She looked different. She was not the same woman who had sat silently at those Sunday dinners. Her hair was pulled back. She wore no makeup but her eyes. Her eyes were clear and cold. She was dressed in a simple, expensive-looking black turtleneck and trousers. She looked like a boss. "Chloe." Ryan's voice was a pathetic croak. He rushed toward her, but stopped when she held up a hand. "Do not come any closer, Ryan," she said. Her voice didn't tremble. It was flat. "Chloe, baby, thank God. I've been looking everywhere for you. You have to listen to me. It's my family. They're ruined. My dad's business is gone. My mum was arrested. Your father, he did this. It's a nightmare." "No, Ryan," Chloe said, her voice cutting. "It's not a nightmare. It's auditing. It's consequences." But they're my family," he wailed. I had to. I was just trying to help them. I didn't know who your father was. Why didn't you tell me?" And there it was, the question that laid his betrayal bare. "Tell you what, Ryan," Chloe said, taking a step toward him. He visibly flinched. "Tell you that my father was a Megacorp CEO. Why? So you could value me differently. So I would have been worth defending at a dinner party. No. That's not. Or, wait." Chloe continued, her eyes narrowing as a final horrifying realization dawned on her. "Or, did you know what?" he said, sweating. "This gallery, my hobby, my little paintings. You never asked how I paid for the rent on my studio. You never asked how I afforded a Soho loft before I met you. You just accepted that I was a struggling artist. But you're a finance guy, Ryan. You're all about the numbers. It never added up, did it?" She was piecing it together live. His nervousness in the coffee shop. His love for her detachment from wealth. "You knew," she whispered, the shock hitting her. "You didn't know who my father was. You didn't know the name Ethelred. But you knew I had money. You knew I had a trust fund. That's what you were after all along." Ryan's face crumbled. The lie was too big to hold. It wasn't like that. Not at first. I did love you. But then, my dad's business, this lawsuit, I just thought, if you could just help, Chloe repeated. "By help, you mean you wanted me to use my family's worth to bail out your family's failures, the family that was actively, viciously trying to destroy me." They're snobs, Chloe, I know. But they're thieves, Chloe said, her voice like steel. My father's report was very thorough. Your father was building death traps. Your mother was stealing from sick children. Your sister was stealing from puppies. And you, Ryan, you're the worst of all, because you're a goddamn liar. You stood by. You let them mock me. You joined them. You called my soul a hobby. She was crying now, but they were not tears of weakness. They were tears of pure, unadulterated rage. You thought I was worthless, she choked out. You and your whole pathetic beige family. You wanted to strip me of my worth. Well, you're looking at it, Ryan. You're standing in it. Helene, what was the final sale price for Greenwich Dusk? The gallery owner, Helene, who had been watching from the desk, smiled. The original $5 million donation was returned. Helene said. Mr. Sullivan felt it was too flashy. Instead, he arranged for a private sale. It was just finalized this morning. The Museum of Modern Art has acquired it for their permanent collection. The purchase price was undisclosed. But I can tell you, Chloe, you are now one of the most significant new artists in the country. Chloe looked back at Ryan. His mouth was open, his face a mask of disbelief. My hobby, Chloe said, is now in the MoMA. My worth is that I am free of you. You are nothing, Ryan. You are a shell. You attached yourself to me for my money, and you attached yourself to your family for their name. And now, you have neither. Ryan sank to his knees. He was for the first time truly broken. Chloe, please. I'm begging you. I have nothing. I have nowhere to go. Don't do this. Chloe looked at the man sobbing on the floor of her gallery. The man she had loved. The man who had betrayed her. She felt nothing. Just that clean, quiet, empty. I'm not doing anything, Ryan, she said. You did this. You and your family. You built your own con, and my father, he just locked the door. She turned to Helene. Please have security. Show Mr. Peterson out, and call my car. My father is waiting. We have a flight to Milan for the Biennale. Yes, Chloe, Helene said. Chloe walked into the back office without a backward glance. She didn't see the security guards hauling a protesting, weeping Ryan Peterson out of the gallery and throwing him onto the Soho sidewalk. She was already looking at the blueprints for her new state-of-the-art studio in Italy, her worth finally and completely her own. The flight to Milan was on her father's jet, a Gulfstream G700 that was less of a plane and more of a flying penthouse. Chloe sat across from Nathaniel Sullivan, sipping a glass of water. They hadn't spoken much since he'd picked her up from the gallery. He was reading a financial report on his tablet, the blue light illuminating his sharp features. He was 60, but looked 50, all an energy and steel. Was that necessary? Chloe finally asked, her voice small. Nathaniel looked up, his eyes meeting hers. Was what necessary, darling? All of it. The bank, the journal, Margaret's arrest, Brenda. Everything. It was so total. Nathaniel Sullivan put his tablet down. He leaned forward, lacing his fingers. Let me tell you a story, Chloe. When you were 12, you had a passion for astronomy. You wanted a telescope, a real one. I bought you a hobbyist one. You mastered it in a week. Then I bought you a prosumer one. You mastered it in a month. By the time you were 13, you were spending your allowance on advanced physics textbooks. You weren't playing at astronomy. You were studying it. Dad, I don't see what— You are not a hobbyist, Chloe, he said, his voice firm. You have never been a hobbyist in your life. When you love something, whether it's astronomy or painting, you are total. You are all in. It is your nature. It is my nature. It is the Sullivan nature. He leaned back. These people, the Petersons, they are the worst kind of creatures. They are weak, talentless, and lazy. And they resent people like you, people with genuine passion, genuine worth. They don't build, they don't create, they just acquire. And when they can't acquire, they mock, they tear down, they try to make you as small as they are. He picked up his tablet again. What I did, Chloe, was not revenge. It was a market correction. Arthur Peterson was a fraud. Margaret Peterson was a thief. Brenda Peterson was a con artist. And Ryan Peterson was a parasite. I did not ruin them. I simply held up a mirror, and the world saw them for what they truly were. He looked at her, his expression softening. They tried to strip your worth. They called your soul a hobby. They put a $50 price tag on your self. I did not retaliate against them. I simply corrected the valuation. The $5 million was a statement. The MoMA acquisition, that was the truth. That is your worth, and it is priceless. Chloe looked at her father, this titan of industry, and saw the man who had read her physics books with her trying to keep up. The man who had quietly bought her the Soho loft, just in case. The man who in 36 hours had torn down an entire family, not out of malice, but out of a cold, protective, paternal fury. "What about Ryan?" she asked. "What happens to him?" Nathaniel shrugged. "He is irrelevant. He has no money, no name, and no skills that I can see. He will drift. He is no longer your concern. Our attorneys," he said, gesturing to Graves, who was sitting silently at the front of the cabin, "have already filed the annulment on the grounds of fraud." "Fraud. He married you under false pretenses," Graves interjected smoothly, not looking up from his laptop. "He actively misrepresented his family's financial position while simultaneously plotting to gain access to your personal trust, which he knew about. It's a clean-cut case. He won't contest it. He can't afford a lawyer." Chloe looked out the window at the clouds, a vast white ocean stretching out below them. She was 30,000 feet above the mess. She was free. "Thank you, Dad," she said. "Don't thank me," Nathaniel said. "Just do good work. The Milan Biennale is the most important art show in the world. I expect you to dominate it. Your hobby is now your empire, Chloe. Go build it." Chloe smiled, a real, genuine smile. "Okay, Dad, I will." And she did. Chloe Sullivan became the art world's new it girl, but with a difference. She had the talent, but she also had the Sullivan iron in her spine. She built her brand or opened galleries and started a foundation to support young, struggling artists, protecting them from the Margarets and Ryans of the world. As for the Petersons, they vanished. Arthur and Margaret were tied up in litigation for years. Brenda was last seen working at a car wash, and Ryan became a ghost, a footnote in a story about a woman who was underestimated. Chloe never saw him again. She was too busy high up in her new studio overlooking the canals of Venice, painting her next masterpiece, her worth self-evident, and her name finally completely her own. And just like that, Chloe stepped out of the shadow of the Petersons and into her own light, with the full power of the Sullivan name and her own incredible talent behind her. What a journey. If you were on the edge of your seat watching the Peterson empire crumble, make sure you hit that like button. It truly helps the channel. What part of their takedown was the most satisfying? Was it Arthur's business imploding? Or Margaret's entire social life evaporating after she was caught stealing from the children's fund? Let me know your favorite moment of justice in the comments below. And if you love stories where a character finds their true strength and serves up the ultimate revenge, you are going to want to subscribe and ring that notification bell. You won't want to miss the stories we have coming up next. Thank you for watching. They say every marriage has its secrets, some small enough to slip under the radar, others large enough to crack the very foundations of trust. But what if the secret is discovered in the most unforgiving spotlight of all, a crowded upscale restaurant? And what if, at the exact moment, a wife learns about her husband's betrayal? She's carrying his child, unsure whether to expose him, protect him, or destroy everything in one impulsive move. This story follows the meteoric rise and catastrophic fall of Derek Harrington, a man who had it all until one dinner turned his world into a firestorm of scandal and investigation. Derek Harrington had always exuded a confidence that verged on arrogance. He was the type of man people noticed in a room, tall, well-groomed, with an intense gaze that made you think he saw your secrets before you even decided to trust him. At 37, he was already heading one of the fastest-growing private tech investment firms in the country, Harrington Ventures, nestled in the heart of New York City. Many had whispered comparisons. He could be the next Elon Musk, or he's aiming to dethrone Bill Gates in philanthropic efforts. Of course, those comparisons were mostly hot air in the media, but Derek ate them up like candy and fueled his ambition further. He had grown up in a modest home in Syracuse, New York, the son of a middle school teacher and an unemployed mechanic. Derek swore to himself at a young age that he would never again know the taste of poverty and uncertainty. If there was a mountain, he would climb it. If there was a competitor, he would annihilate them, or better yet, buy them out. Ever since his first big deal, a startup buyout that netted him a cool $20 million by the age of 26, Derek became addicted to the thrill of high-stakes ventures. His wife, Catherine Harrington, was the silent strength behind him. Once Catherine Barnes, she had come from an entirely different world, an only child raised in Connecticut by a wealthy yet tight-knit family who adored her. Catherine's father, Alexander Barnes, had a small but respectable real estate firm that catered to elite clients. Catherine had an aura of class that Derek desperately needed. Although he was confident in boardrooms and pitch meetings, he often floundered in high society's intricacies. Catherine taught him how to navigate those elite circles with charm and grace. For the past 6 years, their marriage had been a blend of love, shared ambition, and occasional tension, particularly since Derek began pouring all his time into Harrington Ventures. Catherine had repeatedly asked for a child, a family. Derek always said, soon pushing it down his list of priorities. But finally, to Catherine's breathless joy, she became pregnant. Derek, for his part, seemed excited, though many nights he would return home after midnight, exhausted, complaining about client dinners or late-night strategy sessions. Still, Catherine believed in him. She believed in his vision, in his ability to provide not just for her, but for their soon-to-arrive child. Even if love had cooled into routine, she trusted Derek would protect their family. She had no idea her entire life would be thrown upside down by one small choice, deciding to meet an old friend for dinner in the heart of Manhattan. Catherine had not planned to be at the upscale restaurant Aux Merveilles that particular night. She was 8 months pregnant and feeling more fatigued than usual. But her college friend Melanie Carter was passing through New York for the first time in years and insisted on seeing her. To Catherine, it felt like an unexpected gift, an escape from waiting at home alone for Derek to walk through the door at some unknown hour. Melanie had chosen Aux Merveilles because she'd read about it in a luxury travel magazine. The interior glimmered with crystal chandeliers, and each table was separated by translucent screens that glowed with soft amber light. The gentle hum of hushed conversations filled the air, occasionally interrupted by the clink of expensive dinnerware. Catherine arrived early, leaning on the hostess stand for a moment to steady herself. A sympathetic staff member immediately guided her to a plush velvet seat and offered a glass of water. She felt a bit out of place in her maternity dress, noting the swirl of elegant women in cocktail dresses and men in tailored suits. But she brushed off the discomfort. She was here to see her friend, not to impress the Manhattan elite. While waiting for Melanie, Catherine decided to freshen up in the restroom. On her way back, something caught her attention through the filmy screen of a private dining area. At first, she had no idea why her gaze lingered there. She could see a man's silhouette, tall and commanding, and across from him sat a slim figure with flowing dark hair. Catherine's heart twitched. The tilt of the man's head, the way he gestured with his hand that was Derek's mannerism. But it couldn't be. Derek had told her he was in an urgent meeting on the other side of town. Her heart pounding. Catherine took careful steps toward the screen, making sure to stay hidden behind the plush drapery that separated the main dining area from the private alcoves. A waiter passed by, but she quickly turned away, pretending to examine a painting on the wall until he was gone. Then she returned her gaze to the table. Yes. It was Derek. He was dressed in a charcoal suit, the kind he wore for special private events. And he wasn't dining with a business associate. His companion was a woman with an air of cold, dazzling beauty. Catherine didn't recognize her immediately. Maybe she was a client. But then she noticed the way the woman's hand stretched across the table to rest on Derek's fingers, a gesture far too intimate for a business meeting. Catherine's stomach churned. She felt dizzy. She almost rushed forward to confront him, but some primal sense of caution rooted her to the spot. She wasn't prepared for a scene. She didn't know if she was strong enough to face the answers to the burning questions swirling in her mind. So she watched. Derek leaned in, and the woman did the same, her glossy black hair falling forward to frame her face. Catherine could make out the name Sabrina Chen from the conversation. They chuckled softly, and Derek brushed a strand of the woman's hair back behind her ear. Catherine's hands shook tears threatening to flood her eyes. She pressed herself against the wall. She needed to get out of there, needed to breathe. She turned and hurried away, nearly running into a startled Melanie who was just arriving. Melanie took one look at Catherine's pale face, then glanced curiously at the private alcove. "Are you okay?" she asked, hands gripping Catherine's arms gently. "My goodness, you look like you've seen a ghost." In a strangled voice, Catherine replied, "I'm not feeling well, Mel. Can we go somewhere else?" Melanie, always sensitive, nodded without question. She guided Catherine outside, hailed a taxi, and insisted they go back to Catherine's penthouse so she could rest. Catherine murmured something about not wanting to be alone, about needing to talk. Once in the taxi, she told Melanie everything that Derek was there with another woman, clearly more than a business associate. Her friend listened, anger flaming in her eyes. "You need to confront him," Melanie said. "He can't get away with this, especially now when you're about to have his child." But Catherine felt paralyzed. Her mind spun with a million scenarios, none of them good. She wanted the safety of denial, to pretend she didn't witness the betrayal. But she also wanted the raw truth. By the time they reached her penthouse, she had made a decision she would wait for Derek to come home. He would have to look her in the eye and explain. Night stretched on with excruciating slowness. Melanie offered to stay, but Catherine insisted she'd manage. She needed to confront her husband alone. So Melanie left with repeated promises that Catherine call her for any reason, day or night. The apartment felt cavernous once Catherine was alone. Her baby kicked inside her as if sensing her mother's distress. Sometime near midnight, Catherine dozed off on the living room couch, still in her maternity dress and heels, phone clutched in her trembling hand. She awoke to the click of the front door. Derek stepped in laptop bag over his shoulder tie, slightly loosened. He paused when he saw her lying on the couch in the dim light. "You're still awake?" he asked, crossing the room to place a kiss on her forehead. His breath smelled faintly of wine. Catherine recoiled, the sting of his betrayal fresh in her mind. She struggled to compose herself, but emotion burst forth. "Where were you?" Derek froze, obviously caught off guard by her accusatory tone. "I told you I had a meeting." "Don't lie," Catherine shouted. "I saw you, Derek. I saw you at Aux Merveilles with some woman named Sabrina Chen. You were touching her hair." She choked on the words, tears forming again. Derek's face went pale, then hardened with defiance. "You were spying on me." "Catherine, what were you doing there? Having dinner with a friend," she shot back. "But that's not the point. Don't try to twist this around. Just tell me the truth." He ran a hand through his hair, pacing. "She's just a client. Nothing more. The hair thing, it was just a friendly gesture. You know how these international investors can be. They appreciate closeness, personal connections. She's considering a large investment in Harrington Ventures." Catherine stared at him, heart twisting with disbelief. "I'm not a child, Derek. I know what I saw. That was no casual client dinner." He let out a breath, lips pressed together. "Okay. We're close. But it's complicated. Sabrina has connections with major stakeholders in Asia. She expects a certain rapport. If I don't keep her happy, we could lose a multi-million-dollar deal. So you're sleeping with her to make her invest." Catherine's voice trembled with fury and despair. "It's not that simple," Derek said, but he didn't deny it. "This is business, Catherine. And it's not... it's not what you think. Yes, she's flirtatious. Maybe I crossed a line, but it's for the company, for our future." Catherine stood, a surge of anger giving her strength, even in her pregnant state. "Our future, our child's future. This is how you plan to secure it, by betraying me." Derek's eyes flickered with guilt. But then he hardened again. "You don't understand the pressure I'm under. Harrington Ventures is on the verge of a major breakthrough. A single large investment could catapult us into the realm of industry giants. I can't afford to let moral qualms hold me back." Catherine felt as if the floor were dropping out from beneath her. She recognized Derek's ambition had always been borderline obsessive. But hearing him admit he'd compromise their marriage, the very sanctity of their relationship just for a deal, she had no words. A wave of exhaustion crashed over her, mingled with heartbreak. "Get out," she finally managed, voice weak yet resolute. "Catherine," he started. She turned away. "Sleep in the guest room. I can't even look at you right now." He opened his mouth to argue, then thought better of it. Silent, he retreated to the guest bedroom, leaving Catherine to collapse onto the couch in tears. As she drifted in a half-conscious state of heartbreak, a single question throbbed in her mind. How could he do this to us? Sunlight spilled through the floor-to-ceiling windows of the penthouse, stirring Catherine from a fitful sleep. She sat up, her body aching from the night spent on the couch. She half expected Derek to appear with an apology or at least an explanation better than it's for the deal. But the apartment was silent. A check of the guest room revealed he was gone. No note, no text. Only the faint smell of his cologne in the hallway. Catherine felt bitterness coil inside her like a snake. Had he left for work as though nothing had happened? Trying to compose herself, she went about her morning routine, feeding their fluffy grey cat Winston, who circled her legs anxiously, making a cup of tea, gazing out at the city skyline. But none of it soothed her. Her phone buzzed with a message from Melanie. She simply texted, "I'm here for you," followed by a heart emoji. Catherine typed a quick thanks and debated what to do next. Should she confront Derek at his office? Should she call her father? Confide in him? Then as she paced through the living room, the TV caught her attention. A news ticker scrolled across the bottom, and the anchor's solemn voice filled the silence. Ongoing investigation into potential insider trading and financial misconduct at Harrington Ventures. Derek Harrington's office has not yet released a statement, but sources say officials from the SEC are looking into suspicious activity. Catherine fumbled for the remote and turned up the volume. Her heart pounded with alarm. Investigation insider trading. This was the first she'd heard of anything official. The anchor went on. Harrington Ventures soared to prominence in the last few years, drawing comparisons to major tech moguls like Elon Musk and Bill Gates. But now regulators question whether certain investment gains came from illicitly obtained information. Derek Harrington was spotted at a private dinner last night with an unidentified associate, leading to speculation on whether this meeting is connected to the alleged misconduct. In that moment, Catherine felt a strange mixture of shock and vindication. She remembered the hush of Oxmervale, the private table Derek's murmured conversation with Sabrina Chen. Was this the reason for that meeting? She grabbed her phone and scrolled through financial news sites. All of them were erupting with the story. Harrington Ventures under siege. One headline read, "Inside the SEC probe teased another." She found nothing that concretely linked Sabrina Chen to the scandal, only rumors that Derek was meeting with someone who might hold the key to hush money or secret deals. Anxiety clawed at Catherine's stomach. This was beyond a marital betrayal. It might be a legal catastrophe. She needed answers. She dialed Derek's cell, but it went straight to voicemail. Her next thought was to contact his assistant, the ever-efficient Amanda Wu, who always picked up or responded promptly. But even Amanda's phone rang until voicemail kicked in. Fearing the worst, Catherine decided to put aside her heartbreak for a moment and do what she could to protect her family. She reached for her coat and bag, then headed out the door, determined to confront Derek at his office if necessary. The offices of Harrington Ventures occupied the 20th through 22nd floors of a gleaming steel and glass tower in Midtown. When Catherine arrived, the usual bustle in the lobby was replaced by a tense hush. Small clusters of employees whispered, casting anxious glances toward a row of men in dark suits who were busy rifling through documents and laptops. It was clear the investigation was well underway. Catherine stepped off the elevator on the 22nd floor, where Derek's corner office overlooked the city. She braced herself for the sight of more investigators. Instead, she found the reception area swarming with them. She approached a stern-faced man, flipping through files. "Excuse me, I'm Catherine Harrington. I need to see my husband. He regarded her warily. Do you have an appointment? She almost laughed at the absurdity. Appointment, I'm his wife. Is Derek in his office? The man jerked his head toward a closed door. He's in a meeting with the SEC officials and his legal team. Best if you wait. Catherine felt her patience slip. I'm not waiting, she said firmly. Without another glance, she marched to Derek's office door and turned the handle. Locked. She knocked, ignoring the mutterings of the investigators behind her. After an agonizing minute, the door swung open, revealing Derek's lawyer. A slim woman in a sharp navy suit, a phone pressed to her ear. She looked Catherine up and down. Mrs. Harrington. We're in the middle of something. Derek's voice cut through. Let her in. The lawyer stepped aside, and Catherine entered the office. Derek stood at his desk, arms folded, face drawn and tired. Two men in dark suits sat in chairs across from him, notes scattered on the table. They regarded Catherine neutrally before turning back to Derek. We'll give you a moment, one of the men said, as they gathered up their documents and stepped out. An awkward hush fell. Catherine closed the door behind them. For a heartbeat, she and Derek just stared at each other, the memory of last night's argument hanging between them. His eyes flickered with guilt concern, and something else, maybe relief. Catherine. He began running a hand over his face. I was going to call you once this settled. Her anger reignited at his dismissive tone. Settled, Derek. You're under investigation by the SEC. This isn't a small pothole in the road. The news is everywhere. He sighed. Look, I can't say much right now. It's an internal matter, and our lawyers say we should cooperate, but keep quiet publicly. There have been rumors of insider trading, but it's a misunderstanding. We're sorting it out. A misunderstanding, Catherine repeated. Does this have anything to do with Sabrina Chen and last night's dinner? Derek flinched at the name. Why would you think? Because the news outlets are already speculating about it. Derek, she hissed. If you were with her to discuss some insider deal. Stop, he cut in, raising a hand. I can't talk about her. Not here, not now. Let's just say I have things under control. Catherine couldn't believe what she was hearing. Under control? Derek, the entire office is crawling with investigators. I can't even reach your assistant. Amanda was told not to talk to anyone without the lawyers present, Derek said tightly. She's in a conference room with them now. This is standard procedure. Standard procedure, Catherine echoed, her voice faint with incredulity. How far does this go, Derek? Because if you think I'm going to sit at home pregnant while you're possibly facing criminal charges, I didn't do anything illegal, he snapped, though sweat beaded at his temple. Sabrina, it's complicated. She brought me some stock tips about a company we were considering investing in. She claimed she had reliable leads. You used them. Catherine pressed her heart, pounding. He swallowed. Not exactly. I just moved some assets around. I didn't know it would be considered insider information. She told me it was her own research, that it was legit. I never expected the SEC to come knocking. Catherine's mind reeled. So he had used Sabrina's tips, likely crossing a line into illegal territory. She stared at him, struggling to reconcile the charismatic man she fell in love with, the father of her unborn child, with this desperate figure in front of her. Finally, she said, "What do you want from me?" Derek. He looked pained. I need you to trust me. I'm meeting with Sabrina this afternoon to clarify things. She owes me an explanation. If she fed me illegal tips, it's on her. My lawyers can argue that I was deceived. Catherine's breath caught. You're meeting her again. After last night. It's business, he insisted. Look, I get how bad this looks. But if you want to protect our family, you'll let me handle this. I promise I'll fix it. Part of Catherine wanted to cling to the hope that he could, but she saw the desperation in his eyes, the guilt and confusion swirling there. His ambition, once so inspiring, had turned into a reckless obsession that might cost him everything. Maybe she should walk away, call her father, pack a bag and leave. But she couldn't, at least not yet. She carried his child, and some piece of her still loved him. She nodded once. Fine. But I'm not leaving you alone in this. I'm staying in the city. I'll do what I can to help. Derek exhaled relief passing over his face. He reached for her hands, but she stepped back. I'll trust you for now, she said, voice trembling. But remember, Derek, trust isn't infinite. You've already broken it once. That afternoon, Catherine found herself restless, pacing the penthouse. The SEC had allowed Derek to remain at the office, but insisted he provide any requested documents on demand. His phone was undoubtedly monitored, and Sabrina Chen was labeled a person of interest. Catherine tried to focus on calm. She set up a quiet corner to rest, turned on soft classical music, and attempted to soothe the baby within her. Yet every time she shut her eyes, she saw Derek leaning across that table. Saw him gently touching Sabrina's hair. How did we get here? She wondered. Have I been so naive? A phone call from an unfamiliar number broke her reverie. She picked up, heart hammering. A woman's voice spoke clipped and professional. Hello, Mrs. Harrington. My name is Caroline Patterson. I'm a journalist at the New York Daily Mirror. We're working on a story about your husband's company. Would you be willing to provide a statement? Catherine's mouth went dry. No comment, she said hastily, ending the call. But within minutes, another call came from yet another journalist. And then another. It seemed the entire press corps had decided to ring her up in search of a sensational quote. She turned off her phone, trembling with anxiety. The day crawled by. When Derek finally returned home, it was well past 8. Catherine opened the door to find him grim-faced, tie, undone hair disheveled. He looked like a man fighting a war on multiple fronts. Any progress? Catherine asked quietly. He nodded. Lawyers say there's no direct evidence yet. Just allegations that we traded on insider info for a few deals. But they'll keep digging. As for Sabrina, he paused, looking away. We spoke. She claims she's just a scapegoat. She said she's taking a flight back to Hong Kong tomorrow, and that the SEC can't touch her there. Catherine's stomach twisted. So she's running. He shrugged. Or, so she says. I tried to get her to talk to my lawyers, but she refused. She's not answering calls anymore. My attorneys are furious. They say if she disappears, it'll make me look even worse, like we're trying to hide something. Catherine eyed him. Are you still sleeping with her? Derek's cheeks burned red. No. Catherine, I messed up. Okay. I let things get too close, but it was never serious. Not on my end. She wanted to believe him, but suspicion dug its claws into her mind. Is that the truth, or just what you need me to believe? He hesitated. I'm not lying to you. Look, I promise you my relationship with Sabrina was purely for business connections. Maybe it crossed lines, but I never intended to leave you. Or... She shook her head, tears threatening again. How noble, she whispered sarcastically. Derek, I can't keep doing this. I can't watch you destroy yourself and our marriage in this pursuit of power. He reached for her, his hand trembling. For the first time, she sensed he was truly afraid. Catherine, if we can get past this, I'll change. I'll make it right. Just stand by me, please. Looking into his eyes, she saw remnants of the man she'd married, the one who had once had dreams of giving them a beautiful life. Hesitantly, she placed her hand on his cheek. He closed his eyes, leaning into her touch. They stayed like that for a moment, broken but together. By the next morning, Catherine felt an urgent need for counsel. She made a phone call to someone she knew and trusted her father, Alexander Barnes. Despite their somewhat strained relationship, he had never fully approved of Derek's rags to riches aggression. Her father was a steady presence in her life. "Dad," she said quietly when he picked up. "Things are bad. Derek's company is under investigation. There's rumors of insider trading." She heard him exhale. "I saw the news. Are you all right?" "I don't know," she confessed. "He might have been unfaithful too." "I feel like everything is spiraling." Her father's voice softened. "Sweetheart, you need to take care of yourself. Think about my grandchild. Stress can't be good for the baby." She stifled a sob. "I know. Dad, what should I do? Should I leave him?" Alexander was silent for a moment. "I can't decide that for you. But listen, Catherine Derek has always been a risk-taker. That's what made him successful. But it can also lead to ruin if he isn't careful. You have to consider if you can trust him to change. And if not..." She closed her eyes. "I understand." He cleared his throat. "If you need a place to stay, come home. Your old room is waiting, or I can set you up in a nearby property. No pressure. But I won't let you face this alone." Tears welled in her eyes, but she felt a measure of warmth. "Thank you, Dad. I'll let you know." After the call ended, Catherine sat by the window, watching the Manhattan skyline shimmer under the morning sun. Memories danced in her mind. Meeting Derek at a charity gala, her father hosted the spark in his eyes as he talked about turning dreams into reality, the sweet way he'd slipped a note into her coat pocket with an invitation for a first date. Where had that man gone? Meanwhile, Derek's day took a dramatic turn. He was set to appear for a voluntary discussion at the SEC offices downtown. His lawyers insisted that showing openness would help. But an hour before he was supposed to leave, a text from an unknown number arrived. "Meet me at the Park Regency Hotel room, T02. Urgent. Sabrina." His heart pounded. Why would Sabrina risk contacting him now, especially if she was supposedly leaving the country? He showed the text to his head lawyer, Edward Langley, who frowned. "That's ill-advised. She's already under suspicion." Derek frowned. "But if she has evidence to exonerate me or some angle we can use, it could save the company." Langley shook his head. "We can't stop you from going, but this is dangerous. If the SEC finds out, they might interpret it as conspiracy. You should consider letting me or one of the associates go with you." But Derek shook his head. "She might not talk if there's a lawyer present. I'll go alone, but I'll record everything." Langley frowned more deeply. "Just be careful. And whatever you do, don't offer her money or anything that can be interpreted as bribery." Derek nodded grimly. He texted Sabrina back. "I'll be there in 30 minutes. Then he instructed his driver to head to the Park Regency. Anxiety prickled his skin as he imagined the worst: a sting operation, a setup by the SEC, or even blackmail from Sabrina herself. When he arrived at room 1902, he found the door slightly ajar. He knocked softly, hearing the faint sound of classical music from inside. Sabrina's voice called out, "Come in." He stepped into the suite, scanning the opulent living area. Marble floors, plush sofas, fresh roses on the coffee table. Sabrina stood by a window wearing a sleek black dress. She looked impeccable every inch, the mysterious femme fatale. Her gaze locked on Derek. "Don't be shy," she said with a purr. "We don't have much time." Derek hesitated by the door. "Why did you call me here?" She beckoned him over. As he stepped forward, she gestured for him to sit on the sofa. He remained standing. "I'm not staying long." "Talk." Sabrina smiled, though tension radiated off her. "I'm leaving for Hong Kong in a few hours. I just wanted to mend things between us." "I never meant for you to get in trouble." He shook his head, anger flaring. "You handed me illegal tips. That's exactly how I got in trouble." She narrowed her eyes. "Don't pretend you didn't know the risks, Derek. You're a smart man. No one invests millions blindly. You could have done your own diligence, but you were too eager." He opened his mouth to retort, but she continued. "Anyway, let's not argue about the past. I have a proposition. I can provide documentation that proves I misled you, that I told you it was my own research, and you relied on it in good faith. If the SEC sees that you could walk away with little more than a slap on the wrist." Derek's heart skipped. "So you'll confess to lying?" She shrugged, a coy smile on her lips. "I'll say whatever you need me to say, for the right price." He clenched his jaw. "What price?" She sauntered to a small table and picked up a folder. "I have it all here, emails, transcripts. It's quite convincing. I want $5 million. Derek nearly choked. $5 million? Sabrina. That's blackmail. Her lips curled. Call it compensation. I'll be ostracized from my circles. I can't do business with you or your connections again. I'll have to rebuild from scratch. Derek's mind spun. $5 million was no small amount, but his company was worth hundreds of millions. If the investigation destroyed it, he could lose everything. Still, even if paying Sabrina might clear him, it was absolutely illegal to bribe a witness. This could bury him deeper in legal trouble. He took a step back, shaking his head. I can't do that. My lawyers would kill me. She rolled her eyes. Your lawyers, Derek. You won't need them if you're indicted. You'll be lucky to avoid jail. He stared at her, fury boiling. So this was your plan all along? To reel me in, feed me these tips and then blackmail me? Sabrina's eyes flashed. Don't be naive. You pursued me for my connections. We used each other. Now let's finish the transaction. He exhaled, attempting to steady himself. I won't pay you a cent. If you have evidence that can help me, provide it. If not, get out of my way. Her expression hardened. Think carefully, Derek. You have a lot to lose. He turned to the door. I'm done with you. As he left, his heart pounded not just with anger, but with fear. Fear that Sabrina might release evidence that would incriminate him further, or worse, twist the facts to frame him entirely. The upcoming meeting at the SEC loomed large in his mind. Back at the Harrington Ventures office, Derek quickly informed Langley of what had transpired. The lawyer's face turned pale. She asked for money. Derek, if we even hint at paying her, it could be seen as witness tampering. We have to disclose this to the SEC, or they might discover it later and accuse us of hiding it. Derek groaned. You're right. Let's get it over with. The two hurried to the SEC building where they were ushered into a conference room. Catherine, who'd insisted on coming along for moral support, sat quietly in the corner. She offered Derek a small nod of encouragement. Despite everything, she was there for him. The lead investigator, a meticulous woman named Francesca Morales, greeted them with cool politeness. Mr. Harrington, we appreciate your cooperation. We have a few questions. Langley gave a tight smile. We want to go on record that Ms. Sabrina Chen attempted to solicit money in exchange for certain statements. We did not comply. Morales leaned forward, interest piqued. That's quite an allegation. Do you have proof? Derek remembered that he had switched on his phone's recording as soon as Sabrina started talking. He glanced at Langley, who nodded. They handed over the audio file. It was risky, but they had no choice. If Sabrina tried to sell a false narrative, at least they had evidence she'd demanded money. Morales listened with headphones, her stern face revealing little reaction. Finally, she removed the headphones. We'll need to verify the authenticity of this recording. For now, it appears Ms. Chen may have engaged in blackmail. She then fixed Derek with a penetrating gaze. But that doesn't absolve you, Mr. Harrington. Regardless of Ms. Chen's motives, if you used insider information knowingly or not, you remain accountable. Derek swallowed. I understand. The interrogation began, and it felt like a slow, agonizing dance. Morales asked about each investment, each conversation with Sabrina, each trade made in the weeks prior. Derek tried to remain calm, giving honest answers, but stopping whenever Langley advised him to. At times, Catherine interjected small clarifications, like how Derek spent nights working on legitimate research, how he had never shown awareness of wrongdoing. Morales took notes meticulously. Finally, after hours, they were dismissed. Langley told them it might take weeks for the SEC to decide whether to press charges, but at least they hadn't been arrested. Catherine managed a small sigh of relief, but Derek's expression was still grim. This is far from over, he muttered. News of the SEC meeting spread quickly through financial circles. Rumors persisted that Sabrina Chen had fled the country. The press speculated wildly. Did the pregnant wife know, secret mistress, at center of scandal billionaire, playboy, or savvy businessman? Each headline more lurid than the last. Investors began pulling out. Harrington Ventures' stock, though private, was partially linked to a public affiliate, and its share price dropped precipitously in after-hours trading. Derek scrambled to reassure stakeholders. He wrote emails, made phone calls, pleaded for patience. Some listened, others distanced themselves. The board of directors called an emergency meeting to discuss damage control. Catherine watched the meltdown with growing horror. She wanted to stand by Derek, but each day more revelations emerged about how close he and Sabrina had been. Photos surfaced of them at charity galas, at private dinners, looking more intimate than Derek had admitted. The press ran with the story, painting a picture of a torrid affair. Catherine felt herself roiling with a mix of jealousy, betrayal, and lingering love. One night, Derek returned home, late, throwing his keys on the kitchen counter in frustration. We lost another investor. The board is furious. Catherine, who had been restless all evening, approached him tentatively. You need a strong public statement, she suggested. Something that clarifies everything from the insider trading allegations to your relationship with Sabrina." He slammed his fist on the counter. "I can't talk about the investigation publicly, Catherine. The lawyers forbid it. And as for Sabrina, I'd just be fueling the tabloid fire." She tried to maintain composure. "So you do nothing?" His face twisted with exhaustion. "Yes, for now. We do nothing. The lawyers say we need to wait until the SEC finishes their inquiry. Then we can mount a defense." Catherine nodded numbly. She felt shut out. Every day, the tension in the penthouse grew heavier, as if invisible walls were closing in. And Derek seemed to alternate between frantic action and stony silence, leaving Catherine alone in her swirling thoughts. A few days later, Catherine's father showed up unannounced at the penthouse. Derek had gone to the office. She welcomed Alexander in, offering him tea. He studied her face, concern etched in his expression. "You look exhausted," he said. "I can't sleep," Catherine admitted. "I keep replaying everything in my head." Alexander placed a comforting hand on hers. "Come home with me, at least for a while, to clear your head. Give Derek space to sort this out." She hesitated, torn. I don't want to abandon him." Alexander sighed. "You wouldn't be abandoning him, dear. But you're pregnant, stressed, and it's not healthy. You need calm surroundings, not SEC investigators and salacious tabloids." Catherine thought of the baby, the life growing inside her. She felt a pang of guilt. She was so consumed by Derek's crisis, she barely paused to consider her own well-being. After a long moment, she nodded. "You're right. Let me pack a bag. If Derek wants to talk, he knows how to reach me." Within an hour, she was in her father's car, heading toward the tranquility of Connecticut. She left a short note for Derek. "I'm going to Dad's for a few days to rest. I hope you understand." She didn't expect an immediate response, and she got none. Days turned into a week. Catherine settled into a guest suite at her father's estate, where the staff fussed over her, ensuring she had healthy meals and plenty of rest. She felt her body relax bit by bit, though her heart still weighed heavy. She kept an eye on the news. Harrington Ventures seemed to be on the brink. More rumors of a mass investor exodus, talk of a possible resignation by Derek if indicted. Then one afternoon, Catherine received a call from an unexpected source, Amanda Wu, Derek's assistant. Amanda's voice trembled with urgency. "Mrs. Harrington, I'm sorry to bother you, but there's something you should know." Catherine gripped the phone. "What is it?" A man came by the office, Kyle Peterson, one of Derek's old associates. He claimed to have documents that could prove Derek's innocence. But Derek is so busy fighting fires, he barely gave Kyle the time of day. Kyle said he discovered that Sabrina Chen had conspired with another firm to sabotage Harrington Ventures. He said it was personal for her. She wanted to ruin Derek. Something about an old family feud. Catherine's pulse raced. Wait, an old family feud? Sabrina never mentioned anything like that. "I don't have details," Amanda said. But Kyle swore he has proof. Sabrina manipulated data to make it look like Derek was trading on insider info, when in fact it was all her doing. He tried emailing Derek, but with the SEC monitor it might get lost. I think Derek's ignoring him because it sounds too far-fetched. But Kyle seems genuine. Catherine thought back to Sabrina's chilling composure, her blackmail attempt. Maybe Sabrina had orchestrated the entire fiasco, setting Derek up for a fall, while reaping her own profit. It was a terrifying thought, but it made sense given her abrupt disappearance and hush-money demands. "Amanda, can you put me in touch with Kyle directly?" Catherine asked. Of course. I'll text you his number. Minutes later, Catherine spoke to Kyle. He explained that Sabrina's father, Wei Chen, once competed with Derek for a major Chinese tech merger. Derek's success had apparently cost Wei Chen a fortune and tarnished his reputation back home. Kyle believed Sabrina sought revenge under the guise of forging a business relationship, planning to entangle Derek in legal trouble. She fed him tips that appeared legitimate, but in reality they were gleaned from corporate espionage or manipulated data. Then she let the SEC discover them. I have documents showing Sabrina's father orchestrated the entire infiltration, Kyle said, and also a recorded phone call where Sabrina brags about how easy it was to seduce Derek into compliance. Catherine felt anger and relief swirl together. If Kyle's evidence was real, it could vindicate Derek. Why didn't you come forward sooner? He hesitated. I only discovered it a few days ago, rummaging through old servers and unsubscribed email accounts. I used to manage some side projects with Derek, but we parted ways after a disagreement. I had no idea Sabrina's infiltration ran this deep. I thought I owed it to Derek to come clean now. Thank you, Catherine said earnestly. Please get those documents to Derek's lawyers. And also send a copy to me. Catherine returned to the city the very next day. Her father tried to persuade her otherwise, but she insisted. If these documents can save Derek, I need to be there, she said. At Harrington Ventures, she found Derek hunched over a conference table, scattered with papers, eyes bloodshot. The board was in an uproar. The SEC investigation was intensifying. Media outlets were calling him the next Bernie Madoff. It was chaos. Catherine entered the room and placed her hand on Derek's shoulder. He flinched at first, then turned to see her. A mixture of surprise and relief flashed across his face. Catherine, you're back. She nodded. I have news. I spoke to Kyle Peterson. Derek frowned. Kyle, I haven't seen him in ages. Quickly, Catherine explained what Kyle had told her. She saw Derek's eyes widen, a spark of hope igniting. If he really has that evidence, we can prove Sabrina was the mastermind. This changes everything. It does. Catherine agreed. We need to move fast, though, before Sabrina disappears for good. Derek called an emergency meeting with Langley and the legal team. Kyle arrived with a briefcase full of documents and digital files. He walked them through each piece of evidence, showing how Sabrina had infiltrated Harrington Ventures, forged research reports, and leaked them to Derek under false pretenses. The final damning piece, a recorded phone call, where Sabrina gleefully admitted Derek is so hungry for power, he won't even question where the data comes from. By the time the SEC is done with him, he'll be ruined. Langley's eyes shone with triumph. This is exactly what we need. With this, we can build a defense that Derek was the victim of fraud. He'll still face questions about his due diligence, but it's a significant shift in liability. Derek looked stunned, as if someone had handed him a life preserver, just as he was drowning. He turned to Catherine, voice thick. I don't deserve you. I was so reckless. I should have known better. She placed a hand over his. Let's just get through this. Armed with the new evidence, Derek's lawyers presented everything to the SEC. The response was immediate and dramatic. Francesca Morales grilled them for hours, verifying the documents, analyzing the authenticity of the recordings, and cross-checking them against Sabrina's earlier claims. 2 days later, the SEC issued a statement. They were redirecting the focus of the investigation toward Sabrina Chen and her associates. Derek remained under scrutiny for negligence, but the criminal angle for insider trading was all but dropped. The media pounced on the story of the scheming mistress, fueling a new wave of scandalous headlines. But for Derek, the worst legal nightmares seemed to recede. He wasn't out of the woods. Entirely civil penalties for failing to perform proper diligence could still be on the table, and Harrington Ventures' reputation was badly tarnished. Investors remained wary, but at least the threat of prison no longer loomed. Throughout the madness, Catherine stayed by Derek's side, though their personal relationship remained strained. She had forgiven him enough to fight for his exoneration, but the wound of his betrayal festered. One evening after a grueling day of damage control, they sat in the living room. Derek poured himself a stiff drink, offered Catherine sparkling water instead. They sipped in silence. "Thank you," he finally said, "for not walking away, for finding Kyle, for everything." She nodded. "I did it for our child, and maybe for the Derek I thought I knew." He winced at that. She continued, "Where do we go from here?" He drained his glass. "I can't pretend this didn't happen. I failed you. I was so blinded by ambition, I forgot the vows we made. And Sabrina." Catherine cut in gently. "Let's not talk about her anymore." She sighed. "I'm not sure what's next for us, but I do know that if we're going to move forward, we need honesty therapy and time." He closed his eyes, a single tear escaping. "I'll do whatever it takes." In the weeks that followed, Derek officially stepped back from the CEO role of Harrington Ventures, appointing a trusted associate to steady the ship while he sorted out the final legal tangles. The board reluctantly agreed, seeing that Derek had become a lightning rod for controversy. Meanwhile, Catherine focused on her impending motherhood. She invited Derek to prenatal appointments, and he came. Their interactions remained cautious, but as they witnessed the ultrasound images and heard the baby's heartbeat, a profound sense of shared responsibility bound them. Then one crisp autumn morning, Catherine went into labor. Derek rushed her to the hospital, eyes wild with worry. Hours later, they welcomed a baby boy, whom they named Andrew Alexander Harrington. Andrew for Derek's late grandfather and Alexander for Catherine's father. Holding their newborn son, Catherine and Derek felt something shift. The swirling chaos of the past months faded, replaced by a fragile hope. They had survived betrayal scandal and near financial ruin, but life had given them this new beginning, a chance to change. Epilogue. Short conclusion. Within the novel. Over the next year, the SEC investigation wrapped up. Derek settled the negligence charge with a hefty fine and strict compliance measures. Harrington Ventures, though, rebounded under new leadership, and Derek devoted himself to philanthropic initiatives while quietly rebuilding trust among colleagues and loved ones. Sabrina Chen never resurfaced in the US, rumored to be hiding out in Hong Kong under her father's protection, though whispers of further legal action haunted her. For Catherine and Derek, the road to healing was long and winding. They attended counseling, learned to communicate more honestly, and above all focused on raising little Andrew in an environment of love and stability. Through tearful confessions and late-night heart-to-hearts, Catherine began to forgive, and Derek sought to become the man she deserved. It wasn't a fairy tale ending, life rarely is. But in the hush of their child's laughter and the quiet strength of renewed commitment, they found the seeds of something real, something worth preserving. And though the headlines had screamed betrayal and scandal, the final pages of their story were yet unwritten. carrying the possibility of redemption and a new kind of happiness. Life can twist and turn in the most unexpected ways. For Derek and Catherine Harrington, what began as a shocking betrayal escalated into a high-stakes legal drama threatening to tear their lives apart. Yet amidst scandal and heartbreak, they discovered a glimmer of resilience and a reminder that even when everything seems lost, hope can emerge from the shadows. In this story, we've witnessed secrets laid bare, ambitions tested, and a love that struggled to survive the storm. Ultimately, it is a testament to the power of truth and the choices we make in the wake of our deepest regrets. If you found yourself enthralled by the twists and turns of Derek and Catherine's journey, please like, share, and subscribe to this channel for more captivating tales of ambition, betrayal, and redemption. Your support allows us to continue bringing such stories to life, and we can't wait to share the next chapter with you.